No.
You don't use them?
Yes.
Barbara, do you use mobile money, bank transfers, and digital payments?
I mostly use mobile money.
Strictly?
Not strictly. Once in a while, if I get support from my relatives, get ready to put on in the bank thing, but then I prefer mobile money because that is what I can easily access and keep for me.
Nyadoi, you've heard of bank transfers, mobile money, digital payments. Do you use them?
I use both.
Use both mobile money and bank transfers.
Yes.
And they're easy for you to actually go through the day, go through the month, go through the year.
Very easy.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite Nicholas to actually get up on this stage. And he actually has a piece of information reminding you that this right here is the 2022 Digital and Financial Inclusion Summit. And of course, this is the first panel. Ladies on the Wheels, they're definitely sponsored by Watu. And it's such an honor to have every one of them here. And you too as well. Nicholas, you're very much welcome.
Thank you, Bizo. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 9th edition of the Digital Impact Awards Africa, the Digital and Financial Inclusion Summit. My name is Nicholas Kalunja, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer of High People. On behalf of the High People family, we welcome you all for coming today, for keeping time. Yes, we are late by about 10 minutes, but we have kept time all the same. We are happy you are very smart and happy to interact with everyone. This first panel has been sponsored by Watu Credit. It's a very critical panel for us because we believe that an economy that includes everyone benefits everyone. And also believe that for financial inclusion to be achieved, we must focus on people at the bottom of the pyramid. Last year, those who were at Mystery in 2021, we had an informal cross-traders panel which discussed issues pertaining trade markets and the challenges they are facing. And I remember that year, Letsego was very interested in the panel, and they gifted the ladies with 3 million as startup capital, which they shared amongst the 5 of them to improve their businesses. We have been having feedback from them because we kept following them, and they are progressing. One is from Wandegeya market, one is from Kalere market. We are from 5 markets. I may not remember them offhand. So today, like you have seen, we have had women border riders. This is another key area because the border business employs so many people. But of course, there is bias that riding is main business. I understand a platform like Safe Border on over 30,000 riders, the ladies are just 4. You can imagine. But again, these are not from Safe Border. They are riding from different places and doing well. Because Watu Credit sponsored the panel, they are gifting them with brand new helmets and reflectors. But of course, any other generous company, we have the UCCED, we have MTN, we have Airtel, we have like 8 banks here, we have Private Sector Foundation, we have Sun Details, we have Trademark East Africa. So many organizations are here. We also have High People. So whoever is interested in helping these ladies, they are here. You can help them in any way possible. But yes, to start with, what credit has given them reflectors and helmets, which I'll request Becky to hand over to each one of them as we proceed. Becky, please. Thank you. As Becky hands over the helmets to the different panelists, Becky is our activations coordinator, and she was the one in charge of coordinating this panel. She's in charge of looking for the ladies, where they work from, interview them to confirm that they actually do that work, and recommend that they are brought on the panel. She brought 9 ladies this year, and we shortlisted 5. So thank you, Becky, for the good work you have done. Thank you to the ladies. Thank you to Watu Credit for the startup capital for security and safety that you are giving the ladies. As Becky continues with that, the next panel should be getting ready. It will be hosted by Rita Cabanyolo. It is instant and inclusive payment systems. Why are instant and inclusive payment systems important? How do we build national instant and inclusive payment systems? Thank you very much. We welcome you to the 9th edition of the Digital Impact Awards Africa. We thank you all for coming. I know there still a few empty seats because we are all booked and their owners are on their way coming, but we shall continue. Becky, are you done? Yes, we are going to do a group photo for the ladies. I will invite a representative from What to Credit to be part of that photo. What to Credit, you are state somewhere. Kindly, please, come and be part of this very important photo. You don't know the journey you are beginning for these ladies. You don't know what success they are going to benefit, they are going to get after this. But we know what is going to happen. We are going to ask the ladies to stand with the moderator, and the person from What Credit should also stand in between. Thank you. Phenon Records, as they take the photo, give us a video. Yes, as the video comes, when this event ends today, we are changing the setup because we have another event at night, the 11th edition of the High People Music Awards, again organized by High People in this same venue. So whoever is here and loves Ugandan music, you want to come and celebrate the Grammys nomination with Eddie Kenzo is going to be here. You want to watch David Utaro is going to be here. Fik Fameka, Winnie Nwaji, Wyke Bender, Bebe Cool, Nava Gray, Kenneth Mugabe, to all those that love live music, you know all those musicians. They are going to be here today from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Don't miss. Thank you very much, ladies. Fenon, give us a video by Eddie Kenzo, briefly. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, thank you. Can you use one of those microphones?
Serena Hotel. Please go, let's support our own.
Please allow us say
a moment, Fenon. One of the panelists wants to say something. Yes?
Please allow us say thank you and thank the traffic officers, especially the ones who always support us on the road, and the border riders, the men anyway, who support us on the road. Allow us say thank you and God bless them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can go out with your moderator for a group photo. Fenon, get me the video of Eddie Kenzo or David Utalo or Fik Fameka briefly as the next panel gets ready.
This is Eddie Kenzo. I'm here to
I would like also to say thank you for all those who really cooperate with us on the road, who said you would like to encourage women. We are really grateful. Traffic officers, like for example, me in lockdown, I took a lady who was in labor pain in the hospital. It was 11 at night, and really the traffic officers cooperated, and the lady gave birth to her child. Is now, it's like 3 years there in Zambia. So we are really grateful for the cooperation.
Well done, well done. Thank you very much.
Not forgetting to thank Wato Group and IPO.
Thank you, thank you.
Really grateful.
Your message has been well received and well heard. You have thanked the traffic officers. You have thanked the men that help you. You have thanked What Credit and High People for organizing this panel. Thank you very much. Fenon, pray for me the video of Eddie Kenzo, briefly 20 seconds, and David Utalo. Thank you.
This is Eddie Kenzo. I'm here to remind you that it is High People Awards at Serena Hotel. Please go, let's support our own. Uganda to the world. See you there.
Kabisi kandagala, kona tukanya kaumerera. Yo, it's me, your boy, David Utalo. I invite you to 11th edition of High People Music Awards on 18th in November, this very Friday at Serena Hotel, Kampala. Many artists from different countries are going to perform, are going to be there across Africa. So be there on 18th, this very Friday. I'm going to be there to laugh.
Positivity, Toileta. Yo, what's good, my people? It's the freshest nigga around town, King Kong for Mecca. And I just want to let you know that on the 18th of November, I'll be performing at the High People Music Awards at Serena Hotel. See you there. Pull up. It's going to be massive. You know how we do it. Momazina Malaron, teacher. Look.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You can as well go onto the social media platforms. We are surely streaming there. You can tell a friend to join on the Hi People and get in touch with what is happening here. Also, on Twitter, you can use the hashtags. That is the Level 1 project. We've got Include Everyone, then hashtag Digital Inclusion Awards, Digital Impact Awards rather, Africa, but with the abbreviation, not the full word. And you can surely get in touch with those hashtags, get us moving. For now, we're going to our second panel, where we're going to understand why are instant and inclusive payment systems important, how we can build the national instant and inclusive payments. Allow me welcome lady and gentlemen. I'll start with the lady, Mercy Nekesa, who is the founder and CEO, Sun Details. Please come and have a seat. Applause as they are joining, because I know we're not going to remain the same, the information that is going to arise from here. Moses Rutahingwa, the head of Consumer, Private and Business Banking at Standard Chartered Bank, Uganda. We've got Edgar Mugume, who is the head of Business Development, Craft Silicon. And then Paul Ekudu, the Executive Director, Pegasus Technologies. Thank you so much for coming through. I know some of you are wondering why are we going to have this panel. I know the speed at which the COVID-19 pandemic has brought in e-commerce, it has accelerated the way how we transact now. But we're going to look at how the effectiveness of the payment systems, how they can really be upgraded to include everyone in this country. My name is Rita Caballero. I'll also take a seat there. Thank you, lady and gentlemen here. I'm so happy that I'm going to interact with you, and you're going to change so many lives around in this room, even across the world. Let's begin with Mercy and Moses, giving us with clear examples what are instant and inclusive payment systems, and why are they very important. Ladies first.
Thank you. Instant and inclusive payment systems. I'll just start with defining an instant payment system. So this is where you're able to transfer money from one person to another instantly, ideally within less than 24 hours. And typically, for example, banks, if you're to transfer money, sometimes it takes 3 business days for a person to receive. But with instant payment systems, for example, mobile money, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, those are examples of instant payment systems that make it easy. When we look at inclusive instant payment systems, these particularly cater to also low-earning consumers. So there is a barrier to entry. So for example, PayPal, you will need to have at least a smartphone to access the app. But with mobile money, for example, that's inclusive. So you don't even need a smartphone, you just need a cell phone. And this is where I think the beauty of, and also the value and importance of these inclusive payment systems come in, because one, for example, companies like mine, Sun Details, we collect payments from users using mobile money. So we're now opening up a different sector of commerce and companies who build onto the infrastructure of payments. Can you imagine having to pay for a service and you have to go to a brick and mortar shop? That will be harder in terms of barrier of entry for users. But now when we have these inclusive payment systems, it's easier for them to access services. The other thing also is it protects business people. So one, when revenue is collected, like I think the previous panel said, it's better for them to receive payments online, because when revenue is collected, one, you have traceability. So that makes it much easier for you to track, okay, the revenue coming in, how much is it? And it also prevents theft. So if I gave you cash, between here and let's say Ginger Road, it could get stolen, it could get lost. But when you have a clear system that is secure, that means revenue being collected is a lot safer and it's
Okay.
also traceable.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Let's hear from Moses what you've got to say about what instant and inclusive payments are.
Thank you so much, moderator, and good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you're listening to us from. Particularly, when you talk about instant, it means I can transfer money real time, anytime, anywhere, any time of the day, any location I am. So it means that I can transfer it at an instant basis, be able to move from the one person to another at an instant basis. And what is key for us, and which is very important, is all of us want money real time. If you're a trader, you want money real time. If somebody's buying things from your shop, you want money real time. If you're making a payment to somebody who's out of the country, it should be real time. So instant is so important. But then when you talk about inclusiveness, it means everybody in the pyramid has access. So that you don't necessarily have to go to a location. For example, I work in the bank when the bank is open, but wherever the person is can have access. As a Standard Chartered, we believe that this is a journey we've worked for many years because we believe three things define payments. It should be anytime, anywhere, affordable, and which I think is very important because the benefit of being able to deliver it wherever the person is and make it instant should be able to be affordable as well because affordability is very important.
Okay.
But the most important is reliability. Can they be able to depend on your systems anytime they are, wherever they are? So we believe that instant, most importantly inclusive, is very important. And I know we've done a lot of work in the last couple of years to be able to mirror the expectations from customers and users into our ecosystem to enable them to be able to transact wherever they are, and not only transact, but also do any service they would require from a financial institution,
Okay.
wherever they are.
Thank you so much, Moses. Let me hear from Paul and Joseph about what direction should policy makers put into place rapidly to make sure we scale up instant and inclusive payment system. I'm going to start with Joseph on this one. You can share with us what direction should policy makers put in place to rapidly scale up instant and inclusive payment systems. Joseph.
Sorry, Edgar. Thank you, moderator. Of course, the journey to make payments very inclusive, I think, starts with making them affordable. So the need to have a regulation that supports affordable payments needs to be passed right from the regulators by, of course, creating a very cheap way to have all the different players in the sector develop solutions, but also to push for interoperability. Because I think the interoperability is what has made solutions become expensive. I mean, if I'm using, let's say, for example, Airtel money and I want to transfer to MTN and I have to pay a high cost, then I would resort to using cash, which ultimately kills the whole objective of going digital. So I think one of the key things we need to focus on is to make it interoperable. And once we have that in place, and of course we have to do the full work of that interoperability, in a sense that we have to put a uniform ground, which is a switch, in place, whereby every vendor can compete on an equal playing field. And if that is in place, we should be able now to develop solutions and put tariffs that encourage competition. And no competition will always drive the price down. And ultimately, the final user, the last mile, will benefit from a low cost. And it will become a digital ecosystem which everyone is comfortable to use without having to worry about losing so much money in translation between different providers.
Okay.
Yeah, so in my point of view, I think what we need to focus on in terms of regulation is have a uniform place for development, which sometimes we refer to as a sandbox, but then push all the different players to cooperate and interchange information at nearly no cost.
Okay, thank you so much for your submission. We're yet to hear more from the panelists here how we can really do that in the sandbox to be effective? Let me hear from Paul what you have to say about that.
Morning. I
Morning.
completely agree with the panelists on this issue. I think maybe to add to what Edgar is saying, whereas we want to have instant and inclusive payments for everyone and we want proper regulation, we have to taper that off with encouraging good behavior in the industry. We must enable players who have already invested in the business to compete amongst each other without drowning out the new participants. New participants must face low barriers to entry to enable them to play in the space, but we must also hold them to world standards. And that's a fine line that regulation is going to have to play, and maybe financial sector leadership is going to have to think alongside the regulators. And to that extent, I think we need to consider forums such as this, and we congratulate the folks at High People for putting together forums like this that allow the players to talk amongst each other. This is a new industry for all of us. I agree with what the panelist on the Mercy said there. We're really talking about the transfer of value. Cash is a big competitor for all of us here. So let's agree to work together.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. I'll get back to what Joseph was highlighting about the sandbox and the interoperability along there. Let me hear from, that is Paul and Edgar again, what you have to say about how should we build a regulatory sandbox to support the instant and inclusive payment systems. How do we design a very one leveraging level one project principles?
Thank you. So from a viewpoint, I think to build an effective sandbox, we need to first of all begin from the basics. Who should own this sandbox, first of all? That will help give a leveled ground. So in a perfect situation, would expect that the regulator would take this on to be the lead to create the sandbox and control who integrates to it, who transfers data through it, and who can use it. And then we need to make it, first of all, it needs to be affordable, if not cheap. Because the whole idea behind the sandbox is to create quick and cheap way to integrate. So if we are to build a sandbox as Uganda for the tech people to integrate through, then we need not to forget the principles as to why we need to have it in place. So we need to, first of all, establish true ownership, which should be unbiased and not someone within the same space, which in this case, personally, I would think the central bank would be the best person to own the sandbox. And then thereafter, ensure that it is free and fair for anyone to actually interact with. In that way, then no one will see the need to begin putting high costs around their solutions and whatever it is they want to push there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Moses, what do you have to say about how can we make sure we build a very effective regulatory sandbox to support the instant and inclusive payment systems?
Thank you so much. I think I'll first add just two additional points on regulation. First of all, commend the work that has been done by the regulator with the implementation of the National Payments Act and the regulations. That has provided space for many financial sector players to compete and be able to have a firm framework they can build on. We have many fintechs which have been licensed in this particular year in particular, and which shows that the confidence in the industry is growing because regulation also helps provide confidence. And most recently, the regulator has also added on consumer protection guidelines, which are so important to ensure that the consumer is not only using the platform, but they are using it in a secure and safer way. And they have also added in a requirement for providers to not only solve issues in time, but also be able to train and move with the consumer, which I think is very important. And sandboxing is very important because regulation will always be behind innovation, because that's a general principle all across by the global, not only in Uganda. And so the need to be able to provide a sandbox is very important. First of all, having it is good, and I know we have around possibly 6-7 people in Uganda who are currently testing on the new sandbox. And the regulator is calling on all of us as providers to spend more time to test new models, see how they operate, and be able to then deploy them in the market at scale. What can make it work, first of all, is appreciation from the providers, from the different innovators, used as a channel within which to test. Because it can be there, but when there's no appreciation, then that's not, it won't be of good use. But two, the cost is very important. How do you make the structure of sandboxing easier, lighter, so that it's not as if you're deploying a new model, but actually you're simply testing before implementation. So definitely making it simpler to test will be very key, and cost and requirements should be simplified to make it easier for people to test new models.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing. Just that I'm missing out one item that my ears would want to hear. I very well welcome the ideas of the sandbox that have been there, but when we don't set time for ourselves, that this is going to be achievable during this time, for sure, well, I think sometimes it's a waste of time. But let me get to Mercy and then Joseph to share as well, because we know most e-money accounts focus a lot on payments with limited saving, and then we've got credit or insurance offering associated with them. How do we improve this using the instant and inclusive payment system approach?
So, first of all, I think the idea of instant and inclusive payment systems, in a way, sets the stage for some of these products. Because you can imagine if you had, let's say, a savings as a product and then also insurance. But what limits are you going to set for what accounts? So first of all, instant and inclusive payment systems gives us a chance to observe what is the behavior of the consumers who are using these instant payment systems. So for example, mobile money, right? Right now we have a cap, I think, at 5 million Ugandan shillings, I think, for MTN or Airtel. Right, so do we classify those as business accounts? What is a cap for a personal account? So by studying the behavior of consumers on instant payment systems, maybe we can start to say, okay, e-money payments accounts can start having products like insurance for business accounts, because maybe their limits should be up to 20 million Ugandan shillings, and it makes sense to offer an insurance product on that, vis-a-vis a personal account which has a limit. For example, if it had 1M, do we need a product for insurance, or do we rather incentivize savings on those? So I think instant payment system sets a really, really good stage for us to build on this infrastructure, because it allows us to study the behavior of consumers and then, most importantly, tailor the product. Because also the other side to it is you don't want to sell a product or provide a product to consumers you do not understand, because it will have low usability. So when we say limited, because these products do not exist, from my point of view, I think we're right on time, because we've established a baseline with instant payment systems that has been able to help us collect data, and now we're well set to get into the next stage of figuring out what products are more useful for consumers.
Thank you so much. Joseph, let me get to you on this one. Share with us how can really instant and inclusive payment approach help in the focus of payments away from the e-money. Yes.
Sorry, repeat the question.
Sorry?
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, Joseph, if you can share with us on two, because we have seen most e-money accounts focus on payments. So how can we use instant and inclusive payment system approach to make sure we effectively develop this other ways?
So, my name is Paul, by the way. So
Sorry about that, Paul.
I think that the opportunities are endless. I work for a company called Pegasus Technologies, and we, for the most part, facilitate payments in this space. The question we have to ask is, why is it important to transfer value? Most times when we're transferring value, it's because we're going to pay bills or we're going to settle outstanding amounts. So these payment protocols that we are looking at under the IIPs allows for more people to make payments, to make their lives better, whether it's from school fees to rent to electricity to other utilities. or even peer-to-peer payments. We're talking about a whole world where a new, what should I say, a previously untapped market gets to play in the economy. It's small beginnings, but when we think about the extent to which the digital payments have impacted our transactions, we're only talking about 16 to 20%. So in terms of where this can go, we think it can go everywhere.
Okay, thank you so much. Moses, you can share with us on this one, and then I move to Paul again for the next one.
If I got your question right, you're saying beyond payments, what more can we do with instant, beyond e-money, what else can we do? And my reflection comes on all of us who are here or wherever you could be. You have one need, more needs than a provider can meet through an e-money version only. The element would be, what sources of data do we have that can enable us to be able to follow your lifestyle and be able to build solutions that match your lifestyle wherever you are? So that's, I think, the biggest part will be for us to identify data points that can be able to help us think around the customer entirely. I could need airtime, I could need a DSTV payment or a pay station payment, or I could want anything else. How do we build data points? I think becomes very important. And I know every regulator, every person is pushing for us to increase the source of data available. Right now, in Uganda, you have now NIRA doing the data being a source of so many things that is not only will be identifying you, but adding your loan, your passport, your driving license, now adding even your child. So it means that there are more sources of data somebody can use to be able to think around. And I must commend, we have UCC, and when you are in the room, the work they have done over the last 20 years to build a baby that all of us can now use and learn a lot more on, because we now have so many data points through telco that we didn't have 20 years ago. And so we have data through telco, but on banks, I work for Standard Chartered, we have customer data that we believe we can use a lot more. And our customers now, we can predict what product they will get, if they have a loan, when they will need another one. We can predict when they will do a payment, and we must make the communication then relevant for them. So in my view, data will be very important to be able to enable us tap into the customer ecosystem and be able to offer relevant solutions as much as possible.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's now hear from Edgar and Paul to tell us on what partnerships should participants really engage in or put in place to make sure they achieve the IIPS, that is the Instant and Inclusive Payment System. Should we go private? Should we go public? Let me hear from Edgar, first of all, to let us know which one to work with.
Thank you. Yeah, so I would go for a partnership between the private and public. And I think the reason is that when the public is involved, it means more of the government, and they'll foster and put an enabling environment for the private to thrive. And there are a couple of partnerships that I think some already began, and some can still be taken on. So we are talking about inclusive payments, but we also need to know that at times what we use as the instruments or tokens to deliver this inclusiveness may not be cheap. For example, if you want to go e-money, we use mobile phones. The typical low earner, the typical person we're trying to target in this inclusiveness may not afford a mobile phone. I mean, it may seem something very easy when we're in this place with AC, but deep down there in the village, a mobile phone is not cheap to own. So if the private and public partnerships in form of maybe the telcos partnering with the government, maybe the Ministry of ICT and the like, to extend affordable phones to the low earners and the like, it would encourage them to actually embrace the digital technology, or foster more cheaper solutions around card-based and the like. So for me, I would look at the partnership between the private and public sector, and of course, knowing that the like Moses was saying, there's been a push to support the ICT developments by the government. But then I think the collaboration from the private sector to bring in the resources and the like would complete the final mile to deliver the solution to those low earners at unaffordable costs, mainly around the tokens of these other instruments to use in this particular digital world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Paul, what do you have to say, private or public?
I think from my perspective, everybody is a stakeholder in this business. We're talking about peer-to-peer, peer-to-merchant, and government-to-peer. So government must embrace digital forms of payment to promote access to financial and the financial benefits of playing in the economy for those who do not have means. We have to be all very deliberate about accessing the other 80% of the people in the economy who continue to transact, they're just not visible. So partnerships must exist, whether it's public and private, whether it's social or capitalist. And I say that with an asterisk because at the end of the day, the players in this market must be incentivized to make money, but at the same time to encourage innovation. So if regulation comes and makes it very, very flat and the players can't actually make any money, then you discourage innovation, you discourage investment. So it's a thin line where everybody has to understand that most of the market is still out there. So short-term sacrifices will lead to better gains for everybody in the market.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We've got less than 6 minutes to go. Mercy, you want to say something on that?
Sure, really quick. So
In seconds, because you've got 1 minute for your next question.
Sure. Just something really small that I didn't really hear being said, but I think it's important. Awareness about the services that exist. So for example, every time I go to stores, they ask me, like if I want to pay using mobile money, they say, oh, is it Airtel Money or Momo Pay, right? But we have players who are aggregators in the market that can really solve that problem really well in the sense that you don't have to distribute to two different channels, which causes friction in payment. So I think even just the merchants and the consumers who are private, completely private, if they know about the services they provide and the solutions that they have, incentivized by profit, I think that can go a long way in scaling instant payment systems.
Okay. Maybe I would choose both, like the gentleman, because if we go private alone, I see transaction costs being risen day by day. But let me come to that. Mercy, tell us how we can reduce transactional costs and strengthen interoperability across the financial service providers.
So, in two ways. I think for us as consumers, for example, there's very limited capacity that we have in that area because one, financial institutions and also government policy will go a long way. For example, we recently saw that in Tanzania, I think the government passed a directive that mobile money transactions go back to zero cost, which really, really incentivized more commerce in terms of activity. When it comes to us, so for financial institutions too, my God, banks, oh my God. Do you know sometimes printing out a bank statement could cost up to, I think, 15,000 shillings per page? The other time I was at the ATM and they told me you have to pay to remove money. If I went at the counter, I still have to pay. And I asked the lady, I said, well, a mattress looks like an idea right now because if I bring it to the bank, the costs are so high. So I think for financial institutions, how do we look at reducing costs? Then also from like government policy, how do we look at fighting that most of these transaction costs that consumers experience are reduced? There's one example that I thought was interesting, which is Chipper Cash, a new company. One of the things that they did was, I heard them speak and they said...
You have less than a minute, Mercy.
Okay. They said that they had, part of their business model was to get investment to reduce costs for the end consumer. So now sending money is much cheaper. Innovations could be a solution. So I think if we encourage innovations, in some ways that could help us reduce transactional costs.
Okay, thank you so much. You see the reason why you need government. You mentioned it yourself, to come in and mediate around transactional costs.
I didn't mean exclusively private.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Let me move to Joseph to share with us how we can reduce the transactional and strengthen interoperability across the digital financial. I don't know why I'm mentioning Joseph, but surely yes.
Thank you. I figured I'm Joseph for today at the end of the, of the panel, but
Please, Moses.
Is it Moses?
Edgar.
Okay.
Interesting. Now you're smiling. That's interesting. Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you. So, again, when it comes to costs, I think that we need to begin from the basics. What drives the cost up? Costs are driven from high cost of investment. So if all the players here from the fintech world to the banks are going to have a high cost of investment, then definitely the final product is going to be costly for the consumer down there. So of course, I also acknowledge that the government and the central bank has taken a couple of strides to improving this, but I think they need to move harder and work harder and focus on how to have regulation but not have people choke on regulation. For example, I know that banks spend a lot in compliance for AML and credit scoring. We fintechs are struggling with the cost of regulation and licenses. So if all these items that are supposed to legitimize our environment to work are very costly, it's our raw material. So it's going to drive up the cost. So I still insist that we should begin with the basics. Let's lower the cost of the investment, right from the banks to the fintechs, and everyone bring in these solutions. And that way, we shall be able to give an affordable product, but also be able to turn a profit, because, I mean, ultimately, we're all in it for the profit. So that is my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you. You have got something to say, Paul, on that? In 1 minute.
Yes, 1 minute. I think the fastest way to reduce cost is to increase the number of players in the business. I am very hesitant to get government involved in price regulation. Being a private player in the business, I have costs, I have employees, I have long-term plans to stay in survival. So when government comes on board, now we have a different person to answer to. But if a new competitor comes on board and they're able to offer the same service at a lower price, then it changes the game. It allows the customer to decide who actually stays in this market. So let's reduce the barriers to entry. Let's increase the opportunities for others to play in this market. And then let's keep each other fit.
Thank you so much. Moses, tell us something on this particular point. Then I move to Paul again, and then every one of us concludes.
Thanks. I think my comment on cost of the consumer is driven by what are the ingredients. As mentioned, cost of regulation, cost of compliance, that happens a lot in the banks, but even the cost of operations. I think we all have to rethink the models we do apply, because if you don't rethink your models, then the cost of operation that is high on you has to be translated to the client. An example, many years ago, we made a decision as an organization to focus on making technology work and then reduce our network. But definitely the market came to us saying, why are you closing branches? But the decision was based on, if I can make my costs lower, then I'll be able to give that value to the customer. Right now, our customers on board digitally don't pay any fees. How else do we make money? It's a good question all of us should ask ourselves. But the other way is how I can make money as an organization. But the benefit in the reduction in my cost then translates into the consumer, my cost of operation. So I think all of us have to rethink our models, rethink how you make money, rethink how you spend how you deploy your resources, and finally, the cost of technology is still high. The cost of establishing something new in our markets is still quite high. So we need to improve the expertise we can tap in that can possibly be shared across different providers and make the cost of operations of an organization lower. We should give a chance to play a lot more as players and give more value to the consumer.
Okay, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have used all our 30 minutes. Let me borrow 2 minutes, please, Nicholas, and then we can conclude. For sure, a question of strengthening transaction costs can never be, I think, just come to a conclusion, because the end user, we need fair and very low cost. At the same time, you need to make profits. But how does government support in creation of border agent networks and more convenient cash in and out points across all the digital financial services or service providers, and then payment initiation services? Do we need this as a market, Paul? Share with us.
Yes, I think there are things that government can do. The establishment of a national backbone, national infrastructure would go a long way to reduce costs for players in this market. The encouragement of fora such as these, in which government actually pays attention to proposals from players within the industry, the lower barriers to entry into the sandbox, supporting players in the sandbox would allow us to encourage innovation in the space. There are so many ways government can be a part of this, but I think without the active engagement of private sector in determining the future of this industry, we can't go as far or as fast as we'd like. So fora such as these are really a good platform in conjunction with government to get this industry off the road.
Thank you so much. Lady and gentlemen, please allow me ask you the last one. As you're giving your conclusive remarks, also highlight initiatives or what we can do, what can be put in place to make sure we accelerate the electronic payment acceptance around the country. As you're making your conclusive remarks, I will very well appreciate you to encounter that question. Thank you. Mercy. If you can share with us what strategies should be put in place to accelerate electronic payment acceptance around the country. Also make your conclusion.
So one of the strategies is encouraging using government policy when transaction costs are reduced. Again, it makes it easier for more people to adopt electronic payments. And also, not just the government, also, again, I go back to the banks because, for example, if you want to be electronic, I think if those costs are reduced for the end consumer by revising business models possibly, it makes it easier for us to adopt more electronic payments. So we have a diversified, so we can say mobile money, and then we also have bank accounts, which makes it easy to transact. And also, I think innovations need to be encouraged because they're very interesting solutions that will come from fintechs. And so when innovations are encouraged, then we also have an increased participation from the consumers. And I think in conclusion, also awareness and sensitization, because sometimes there's friction when it comes to the end consumer. I mean, is my money going to be safe if I put it somewhere there? And so part of that has to go into, like, we need to teach each other the awareness of, no, this is good, this can be safe, and also for us as fintechs, it's imperative that we make sure that people's money is also safe on our platform.
Okay, thank you. Moses.
Mine are two. One is, back to your question, ensure that we carry the consumer along the journey, because the consumer is so important in all this. Educate them, teach them how to be secure, because cyber and digital-related fraud is a big hindrance towards being able to have many of our customers accept it. But secondly, be able to use the data we have through different players to be able to make the process as simple as possible. It's like 1, 2, 1, 2, instead of giving like a whole list of menus somebody can go through. Keep it as simple as possible, because all I want is cash in, cash out. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, thank you so much. Edgar.
I would also go with two main points. The first being the literacy. Like he was mentioning, we need to invest both private and public to educate the people on how to use these platforms safely, securely, and efficiently. Because most of these people are running away from them simply because they do not, may not afford, but not understand how they work. Because lack of education on something is a key hindrance in this sector. So we need to educate them on how to use them. But then also, I also want to speak to the aspect of credit. We need to put platforms in place that can offer microcredit. For example, like at Craft Silicon, we took a deliberate move to ensure that for all the institutions we support, we push them to have platforms that send instant electronic credit. Because when someone receives credit electronically, it's very likely that they'll utilize it electronically. Right now, we are still living in an age where someone applies for a loan and they go and receive money in physical cash. So if we put enabling environments to receive digital credit, then we shall, of course, in a way, foster the usage of digital or e-currency in the same ecosystem.
Okay, thank you so much. Let us hear from Paul.
Okay, I really can't add much to what my colleagues have said here, except to say that let's keep in mind the final consumer, and maybe just to applaud the efforts of the women on borders that we heard about just a few minutes ago. Those are real customers. Those are real people dealing with real world problems. And the things that we're doing in this space that make it democratic for one to transact, to accept payments, to make payments, actually help individuals look after families and look after their responsibilities. So
Okay.
I really want to applaud the CEO and the CEO of High People for bringing that example contextually to this conference. What we're dealing with here actually affects real people.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. For me, I would urge the service providers that are giving us digital payments or electronic payments. Sometimes you go even the ones that are available, you hear network, what. So service providers, if you can coordinate with whoever can make it possible for everything to be positive, we shall appreciate. Thank you for the discussion. We've been looking at the instant and inclusive payment system, why it is very important, why we need it, and how to make it better. For now, the CEO, High People, takes it on.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you to the panelists we have heard about instant and inclusive payment systems. You could please go out for Financial Inclusion Summit. Welcome you once again. We are going to have a next panel, detailed and broad. We are going to discuss issues affecting internet, issues affecting banking, issues affecting trade, and how we can sort all those issues. But before we start, Fenon, play for us that video. Thank you.
This is the night, the celebration, the only place to be. The 11th prestigious High People Music Awards #Level 1 project featuring epic performances by Bebe Cool, Nava Gray, Afande Mia, Kenneth Mugabe, Roberto, Zulanda, and Ewulamun, co-hosted by King Wesley, Lady Bizzle, Emily Sonia. Live Friday, 8th November at Kampala Serena Hotel. Buy your tickets at 100K and 200K now. Tables at 3 million. In partnership with Owaraga, Met Images, E-Jazz Radio, and Nimiro, Pesajet, Fresco, My Doctor, Nonda Coffee.
Chess-flavored gin.
High People Music Awards, sponsored by God.
Thank you very much. Yes, the next panel is winning from the boardroom. What can C-level executives and business leaders do to ensure that digital and financial inclusion is achieved? This panel is presented by Better Beauty. Better Beauty is a graduate from High People Women in FinTech Hackathon. We do an annual Women in FinTech Hackathon where ladies come to innovate and develop products. Among the products that have since gone to the market is Better Beauty. Fenon, please get us the video of Better Beauty before we gain further. Thank you, Fenon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fenon. Yes, like you have seen on the video, you can get your hair, your nails, and all those makeup details done by the tap of your phone. Will bring experts at your home to manage your hair, your nails, among other things. Thank you, Better Beauty, for sponsoring this panel. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the panelists we have for this panel. To start with, we have Lydia Nakamia, the head digital banking and pay bank. Thank you, Lydia. We have Anna Nambo.
People for putting this together, because this drives the business that we are in.